love. It's one of the most powerful forces in the world, shaping art, music, history, our decisions, even our identities. But despite its beauty, despite how much we crave it, the truth is this: loving is hard. It's not always romantic sunsets or holding hands through storms. Sometimes love is messy, painful, confusing. Sometimes it leaves us questioning ourselves, doubting others, or wondering why something so natural feels so impossible. And in this video, we're going to explore why that is not just emotionally, but biologically, psychologically, and socially. Because the difficulty of love isn't just a matter of bad luck. It's rooted in how we're built, how we're raised, how we're shaped, and understanding. It might just help us love better. Let's start with something we can't control: biology. Falling in love triggers a flood of chemicals in our brain: dopamine, oxytocin, vasopressin, and even cortisol. Dopamine gives us pleasure, reward, and motivation. That's why early love feels like a high. Oxytocin and vasopressin bond us, connecting us deeply with another person. But cortisol, the stress hormone, also spikes, because being in love makes us emotionally vulnerable. The first stage of love, often called the honeymoon phase, feels magical because it literally is. Our brains are on a chemical roller coaster, but that high can't last forever. Eventually, those chemicals shift. The passion fades and the deeper emotional work begins. And here's where many people struggle, because they mistake the calm after the storm as the end of love. And in fact, it's just the beginning of something more mature. Love becomes less about intensity and more about consistency, less about butterflies and more about building. And a lot of people aren't ready for that transition. But biology is just the start. Our ability to love is shaped long before we even know what romance is in childhood, in the arms of our parents or guardians. This is where attachment theory comes in. If you grew up in a secure environment with caregivers who responded to your needs consistently, you likely developed a secure attachment style. That means you're more likely to trust others, to give and receive love in a healthy way. But not everyone is so lucky. If you experienced inconsistency, neglect, or emotional unavailability, you might develop an anxious or avoidant attachment style. Maybe you constantly fear being abandoned. Maybe you push people away when they get too close. Maybe you want love desperately but don't trust it when it arrives. These patterns aren't just personality quirks, they're survival strategies from childhood. And unless we become aware of them, they follow us into adulthood, making love a battlefield of old wounds and invisible fears. And then there's vulnerability, the beating heart of love. To truly love someone, you have to let them see you, your fears, your dreams, your past, your flaws. But for many people, vulnerability feels like danger. We live in a world that tells us to be strong, independent, unbothered. Opening up feels like weakness. And yet, love cannot grow without it. Think about it. How can someone love the real you if you never show them who that is? Vulnerability is terrifying because it opens the door to rejection, to judgment, to loss. But it's also the only way to experience intimacy, not just physical closeness, but emotional connection. Love demands that we take off the mask. And that's not easy for everyone. Past pain makes it even harder. Many people carry the weight of heartbreak, betrayal, or toxic relationships. These experiences change us. They teach us to be cautious, to guard ourselves. We start to associate love not with joy, but with pain. And that shapes our behavior. We pull back when things get serious. We sabotage healthy connections. We chase unavailable people or settle for less than we deserve, just to avoid being alone. Some of us become so afraid of getting hurt again that we stop trying altogether. But unresolved wounds don't disappear. They fester, and they show up in our present, whether we want them to or not. Healing is essential not just for ourselves, but for the people we want to love. And while our internal world matters, so does the external one. Society plays a huge role in how we perceive love. Movies, TV shows, social media, they all present love as dramatic, fast-paced, and flawless. We see grand gestures, perfect couples, endless passion. But we rarely see the arguments, the misunderstandings, the therapy, the growth. We're taught that love should be easy, that the one will just complete us. So when real love requires effort, compromise, or patience, we think something's wrong. Social media makes it worse. We compare our relationship or lack of one to carefully curated images online. Everyone else seems happier, more in love, more stable. But most of it isn't real. Love in real life is not a highlight reel. It's a work in progress, and often a messy one. Another reason love is hard is because many of us don't truly love ourselves. And here's the thing. It's incredibly hard to accept love when deep down you don't believe you deserve it. If you carry shame, guilt, or low self-worth, you'll question every kind gesture, every compliment. You might reject love unconsciously because it feels foreign or suspicious. Self-love isn't about ego or arrogance. It's about recognizing your value and treating yourself with kindness. When you begin to love yourself, not just in words, but in action, you raise your standards. You stop settling for relationships that drain you. You stop begging for love and start choosing it consciously. And that changes everything. Let's not forget, love also requires skill. We assume it's a feeling, but it's also a practice. Communication, empathy, conflict resolution. These were learned abilities. Most of us weren't taught how to handle difficult conversations, how to apologize, how to express needs without blaming. We mimic what we saw growing up, and if that was unhealthy, we carry it forward. But the good news is that love skills can be learned. You can practice active listening. You can learn to regulate your emotions. You can unlearn harmful patterns. And over time, that makes love feel less like a mystery and more like something you're capable of doing well. So, let's step back and answer the question again. Why is loving hard? It's hard because we're complex, because we carry wounds, because society feeds us unrealistic expectations, because we're afraid, because we never learned how. But none of these reasons mean love is impossible. In fact, they make love more meaningful. Because when you choose to love, despite the fear, despite the pain, despite the effort, that's not weakness. That's strength. That's courage. Loving is hard because it requires us to grow. It calls out our ego, challenges our habits, confronts our fears. But it also invites us to heal, to connect, to experience something bigger than ourselves. It forces us to become better, not just for others, but for ourselves. Love is not a fairy tale, but it is real. It is messy and imperfect and sometimes heartbreaking. But it's also beautiful and transformative and worth it. If you're struggling to love or to be loved, you're not alone. You're human. And every human being wrestles with this. What matters is not perfection, but intention. The willingness to keep showing up, to keep learning, to keep opening your heart, even when it's hard. Because in the end, the hardest kind of love is the kind that teaches you who you really are.